And they all went like this, "We don't know where he is, Ya Rasulullah." And so the Prophet ﷺ went in under the palm thing, and when Nu'ayman saw him, he shook the palm thing, and all these palm things came down and covered the Prophet ﷺ in dust. And he looked at Nu'ayman, he said, "Nu'ayman, why'd you do that?" He said, "Those people out there, they told me to do it." Because he was angry that they had revealed his hiding place. And at that point, the Prophet ﷺ, he literally laughed. And this is a man who, another time, he took a blind man. The man asked him to show him where to urinate, and he put him in a public spot. And the man urinated, and everybody started laughing and told him, and he said, "Who did this to me?" And they said, "Nu'ayman." He said, "Wallahi, if I catch up with him, I'm going to hit him so hard he'll never forget it." And he was in the mosque about a month later, and Nu'ayman saw him, and he walked up to him. He said, "Are you looking for Nu'ayman?" He said, "Yes." He said, "I'll take you to him." So he takes him over, and Sayyidina Uthman was praying. And he was the Khalifa at this time. And he puts his hand, he says, "There he is." And he lets him feel him. And he takes his cane and hits him over the head while he's praying. And when Sayyidina Uthman finished his prayer, he went and he said, "What's going on?" And the blind man said, "Aren't you Nu'ayman?" He said, "I'm Amir al-Mu'mineen." And he said, "Who did this to me?" And he said, "Nu'ayman." And at that point, Sayyidina Uthman, the tribe came in because they were furious. And he actually just said, "Just leave him. Leave Nu'ayman." The man is just, that's his nature. And if the Prophet ﷺ would put up with him, I'm going to put up with him. And that's part of that spirit that was in that city. And these people were people that really had a spirit of just forgiving people, of just loving people. And if you can't forgive your spouse, your family member, we've got a serious problem. We have a serious problem of the inability to overlook the fault. People know the verse, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that وَالَّتِي تَخَافُونَ نُشُوزُهُنَّ فَعِذُوهُنَّ. Those who you fear nushuz. Now the word nashaza in Arabic means to elevate yourself over. It's an arrogance that begins to manifest. And it can be from a man or a woman. A man can do it to a woman. A man can be nashiz in a relationship. And you have to know that in Sharia. And there are rules of fiqh relating to a man who is nashiz. A man can be in the same situation. But this is related to the woman here. And it says, the first thing to do is wow. And our ulama say, even though wow in usul, la yufidu tartib. Whenever you see wow, it doesn't mean that you follow the order. In this ayah, our imams, Imam Malik, Imam Ahmed, Abu Hanifa radhiyallahu anhu said that the wow here means you have to follow this tartib. You can't hit somebody for doing this. You have to give wow. Most of the ulama say for a month. You give them exhortation. Now, Ibn Ashur radhiyallahu anhu said, this ayah is actually to eliminate domestic violence. Because domestic violence, and I guarantee anybody who's familiar with domestic violence knows that the violence occurs when people lose their tempers. And it happens in the heat of the moment. And you get into what in this culture they call codependent relationships, where you get into these 6 cycles of violence, where the man beats the wife, and then the next day it's flowers and chocolate and apologizing and "I love you" and "I'll never do it again," and she believes him, and then the cycle happens again. This is the type thing. Police know about this. And police are warned about coming between spouses because they will often turn on a police officer in domestic violence situations. So, we're dealing with human psychology that is very complicated, and we have to take that into consideration. But when Allah says after that, وَهَجُرُهُنَّ فِي الْمَضَاجِعِ, and then do not sleep with them. Do not sleep with the woman. This is a next stage, because one of the things about human nature is relationships of intimacy are extremely important between the male and the female in a marital situation. And when that relationship breaks, it allows a space. There's a psychological space that is created where people can really begin to think about the other person. And it occurs with the man because he misses his wife also. So there's a psychological space that's created in that. Now the final verse, وَضْرِبُوهُنَّ فِي نَطَعْنَاكُمْ, then it says, strike them. Now, this ayah is unfortunately translated in some Qurans in English as beat them. Well, I've actually seen that, beat them. And there is no way that means beat them. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. وَضْرِبُوهُنَّ, it also does not mean like what Hassan Rifat said, it means go on strike or something like that. إِضْرَاب, which is, أضرب is a modern word. It's not even a classical Arabic word. It's a modern word. It's a fourth form, أضرب يضرب إضرابا, like go on strike. It doesn't say that. It says, وَضْرِبُوهُنَّ. And we cannot say that that is not in the Quran. That's in the Quran. And I'm not going to deny that. But we need to understand what that verse means. And this is fiqh fi din. Because it is the fuqaha that interpret the Quran, not common people. And our fuqaha have said about this, Ata said, that this is not a fi'l amr in the Quran for nadab, or for wujub, or for ibaha. It is karahiyah. And this is Ata, and this is in Qadi Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi's Ahkam al-Quran, which is a very famous book on the rules of the Quran. He says, وَهَذَا مِنْ دِقَّةِ فِقْهِ الْعَطَاءِ. This is from the subtle understanding of Ata, that he derived the fact that it is makruh in this case, because normally an imperative in the Quran is either for obligation, like aqimus salat. There's an imperative for obligation. An imperative can be for recommendation, mandub, nadab, when Allah says, udkurullaha dhikran kathiran. That's an imperative verb, but it's used for nadab, for recommendation. And then it can be used for ibaha. Kulu washrabu. Eat and drink. That's ibaha. Allah's not telling you you have to do this. It's saying that you're permitted to eat and drink, and then it's not to excess. It's makruh to there, la tusrifu. It's a nahi lil karahiyah. It's makruh to go and eat more than you need. All right, it's not haram. You can overeat and you haven't done a sin. So the Quran is very subtle in that, and it's the fuqaha that determine how the imperative is used. Now in this verse, Ata said the imperative here is for karahiyah, which means that it is odious, it is disliked, it is not recommended, it is makruh. And the Prophet ﷺ said, لَن يَضْرِبُوا خِيَارُكُمْ. The best of you would never hit a woman. And the Prophet ﷺ never struck a woman. Now in the Hajj of Hujjat al-Wada', and this is very important, when the Prophet mentioned about darb, he said, darban ghayra mubarrih, a striking that is not mubarrih. Mubarrih means something, bariha, al-bariha or bariha is something that happened in the past. Ma bariha means it's still going on in Arabic. Mubarrih is something that leaves a trace. In other words, that if a woman was struck, you would see the trace of that on the woman. And the Prophet prohibited the face. It is haram to strike the face. You cannot hit a person in the face. Even Bani Adam, you're not supposed to. The Prophet said, اجتنب الوجه فإن آدم خلق على صورته. Avoid hitting the face when you do your martial arts, because this man was created in the same form as Adam. In other words, this is an Adamic form that Allah has given us, and it's a way of honoring that form. So you're not supposed to strike people in the face. Now, if you look in the old 1930s films, there are common scenes where there'll be like an argument, and then one of the people will go, they'll hit them like a slap. And then suddenly it all changes, and then they usually kiss in the film or something like that. But the point of that is that that was a very common thing, even in American culture, where you get into an argument, and there would be a way of kind of breaking it, of bringing somebody into a type of presence, where they get out of an emotional state. And it's doing something like that. It's like, stop it. Stop it. It is not a violent thing. It's just a way of bringing them back into their body. What happens when people get very upset sometimes is they actually begin to lose a presence. They actually lose a psychological presence. It was a way of bringing people back into that presence. And that is why it is prohibited to harm children. I mean, to beat a child is haram in Sharia. It is haram to beat an animal, for God's sakes. I mean, it is haram to beat an animal. And so where do you place the human being in that category? So this idea of striking, the Prophet clarified that it is a light strike. It's just a way of really saying, listen to me, please. Listen to me. And it's a type of a discipline. And it was given with karahiyah as a way of maintaining the self-esteem of Arabs. I guarantee you that. And I'll tell you why. This verse was revealed when a woman was struck by her husband, and the Prophet ﷺ took the woman and said, I'll take you